was. So without further ado, let's see what happened on the board. Janowski opens with white and we have d4, d5 by Rubinstein, and bishop on f4. London system, so quite vintage. In 1906 we have London system. c5 by Rubinstein, e3, e6, and c3. Knight on c6, knight on f3, knight on f6, and here bishop on d3. Queen on b6, so pretty standard stuff. Queen on c1, defending the pawn on b2, and now bishop on d7. Knight b on d2, rook on c8, just developing, and now queen on b1. Setting up this battery, pointing an h7, which is pretty interesting. However, already two moves by the queen. We have knight on h5 now by Akiba Rubinstein, trying to exchange first of the bishop, so definitely that is the plan. Bishop on g3, and nowadays what is usually played is g6. 21st century move, and now if the plan is if white castle, then we exchange, and after h takes on g3, black stands really great and can continue the game. There is, however, some problem with this g6 move, because some players can go for a4, a5, continue this way. So for example, bishop on g7, and after a5 this queen has to retreat, and of course this London bishop is quite annoying, so you have only one square, and this bishop can actually avoid exchange. So queen on c7, d takes on c5 castle, and the game can continue, but white stands better here. So this is how it's played now. However, Rubinstein goes for something else. Knight takes on g3 immediately, so he doesn't wait for Janowski to castle first, which is very, very risky. But as we've seen in the game against Marshall, Rubinstein sometimes can provoke the attack on the king side just to get the advantage somewhere else. So what is his plan, in this game against so sharp tactician like Janowski? We have h takes on g3, and for now just h6, as the pawn was under attack twice, and now knight on f1. So Janowski remaneuvered the pieces and prepares to the attack on the king side. We have bishop on d6, so what's gonna be planned for Rubinstein here? g4, with the plan, of course, making a space for the knight. And now Rubinstein goes for king on e7. He didn't castle, he keep the king in the center, he connects the rook, and here is the plan. Now Janowski has to change what he gonna do. So we have queen on c1, remaneuvering the queen as it's completely unuseful on this diagonal. We have queen on a5, pinning the pawn, and now queen on d2 and b5. So instead of hiding the king, Rubinstein starts to counter attack on or maybe not even counter attack, but he started the attack on the queen side, and now b4 can be very unpleasant with the support of the pawn. So Janowski played d takes on c5. We have bishop on c5, and now knight can go on g3, as the bishop on d6 actually was pointing there, and that would be, very unpleasant to have the triple pawns on g6. But now, why not? Improving the position of this knight, and this knight on f1 was the very dubious, maneuver. However, now there is no problem with that. We have b4 as planned, and now what to do, because Rubinstein definitely gonna take this pawn and create the weakness on c3. So definitely something has to be done. One of the ideas could be c4. That could be very interesting. After d takes on c4, bishop on c4, the rook can be brought to the d file, and for example b3. And white could have many plans. Of course, castle is possible, but also the rook on h5. This would be very interesting. You know, the rook would be very active, and king can always castle artificially on f1 or even if on g1 if needed. So that was possible, one of the plans. However, we have castle immediately. And now b takes on c3, b takes on c3, and definitely there is a weakness, and black has to find the way actually how to attack this weakness. What would you do? So Rubinstein doesn't have that problem. He just simply play bishop on d6 and wants to remaneuver the bishop on this diagonal, because, you know, moving the rook first, bringing the king to f8, and then bringing the bishop here would take much more time. So this is why we have bishop on d6 with tempo, because with the attack on this knight, triple pawns problem. So knight on e2, and knight now defends c3 pawn. And now how to bring the bishop on this diagonal? Knight on e5, and there is not much choice actually by white. So because otherwise the bishop is also under attack. So knight on e5. We have bishop on e1, and now rook a on c1 defending. So more and more pressure is coming on c3. We have rook on c7, very simple, and now Janowski starts to attack on his own. So we have f4 with attack on the bishop, bishop f6, and now e4, as the king is still in the center, so opening the position would be really, really great. However, Rubinstein just calmly take on e4. So we have d takes on e4, bishop on e4, and now right on time bringing the rook to the game, and now the king can just hide. So it's just, you know, on time. We have rook f on d1. And now some ideas like the queen on d6 are possible. So bishop on a4, and now what to play now? The rook is under attack. This doesn't do anything to black actually. King a8, and there is no way to continue the attack, and rook is still under attack. What white could try is actually bishop on c2. Fighting for this c3 pawn, which is already very difficult, but bishop on c2, and white rather shouldn't take the bishop, because after exchanging then simply rook on c2, bishop on c3, queen d6 now, and after king on e8, let's say rook on c3, rook on c3, knight on c3, queen takes, and then white could win this pawn, and that would be still better, slightly better for black, but white actually controls this diagonal, have this passed pawn, so there is definitely some counterplay for white. So after bishop on c2, probably black would have to remaneuver the bishop on c6, and then white could play bishop on b3, maybe c4 in the future, but it's still very complicated. Queen on c5, let's say knight on d4, king f8, hide the king, and after queen on c2, maybe prepare some ideas with f5, king g8, king h1, king's in the safety, and the game can continue. Maybe that would be the plan. Also, definitely black gonna attack c3, but as I said, it can be moved once the knight is relocated. Still very complicated position, but probably that was the chance for Janowski. However, he goes rook on e1, so he just give this pawn for free. So we have bishop on c3, knight on c3, and rook on c3, so winning the pawn. And Janowski, of course, don't want to exchange more pieces. We have rook on b1, and now this rook is heading to b7, so that can be very, very unpleasant. Rubinstein, of course, doesn't allow that, and he plays bishop on c6. We have bishop on c6, and now you cannot take with the rook because your queen is hanging, so that's pretty tricky. And also rook on c6 is not so impressive. Rubinstein plays very, very precise. Queen on c5 with check, king on h2, and only now bring the queen to c6, controlling b7. No counterplay for Janowski at all. that is a, you know, positional, maybe not the masterpiece, but very precise game played by Rubinstein. And here, for example, f5 could be played by Janowski, but actually white doesn't achieve much. For example, rook on c2, this is very dangerous, as you see. So already position of black pieces are really great. So probably queen on b4 with check. And here queen on d6, Rubinstein could even exchange this this mating queen. Queen on d6, king on d6, f takes on e6, f takes on e6, and the game can continue, but black already has a huge advantage, one extra pawn. These pawns are just so bad. Black gonna, you know, double the rooks on the second rank or exchange one pair of rooks, so it's definitely winning for black. So Janowski tried to win the pawn on a7, and he centralized the queen. So queen on d4, pointing on a7, and Rubinstein just ignores. Rook c2, creating the threat, you know, checkmate on g2. We have queen on a7 with check, king f8, queen a3 with check, king g8, and now queen g3 defending. So what Janowski achieved is actually winning this pawn, create the passed pawn, which gonna die now because rook a2. And we reach the critical position. Black has the advantage, but still have to win. How to do that? Luckily for Rubinstein, as we already know, Janowski is not really the greatest endgame player, and he didn't play the strongest g5. It's not the winning, it's not the drawing move, but it still gives some chances in the endgame. Probably not against Rubinstein, as Rubinstein, you know, was a maestro of the endgame, but let's see what could happen. For example, rook on a5, pretty tricky move. That is a threat if white gonna take on h6, so probably rook on e5. And after rook on e5, rook e5, f takes on e5, and exchanging these pawns, let's say queen on e4 with attack on the rook, the game can continue. Of course, black can try to win that pawn, which shouldn't be a problem. Also can try to put more pressure here, but keep in mind that white still have, you know, some counterplay on the h rank, okay, especially as the h file is open. So there are still some possibilities, but definitely black still stands better. But that was the last chance which Janowski could try. However, this is very educational. He played rook e on c1. So he literally want to exchange the queens for two rooks. Is it good? Not at all. Queen on c1, rook on c1, rook on c1, and this is definitely now winning for black. Why? Queen on d3, rook c on c2, and now black gonna win this pawn for sure. And of course, if white play a queen on e4 trying to defend, then actually this is completely losing, because black gonna have two extra pawns and winning endgame. So Janowski tries something else. He set up the trap. So we have queen on d8, king on h7, and now queen on d3. Looks like perpetual check. And how would you defend in this position, okay? Because it looks like you're gonna get the threefold repetition and you're gonna draw the game. If you play g6, which Rubinstein didn't go, that would be a blunder. And that would be just a draw, because queen d7, queen d7, you can go king g7, you get checked again, okay? King h7, queen d7. And if you try this way, then of course queen d8, king g7, and you are always checked. So here is the problem. You of course, you know, can play something like, you know, take the pawn, but you never can checkmate your opponent. So that would be just a draw. However, Rubinstein calculates very precisely to the end, and he plays f5. f5. We have g takes on f5, and this was the tempo which is enough to win the game. Now rook on g2 with check, and in this position David Janowski resigned the game. And he resigned because if he go king on h3, then of course rook on h2, king g4, another rook is coming, and now winning the queen, okay? So with the rook extra, then of course this is winning. And if king on h1, then rook on d2, attacking the queen. So there are no tricks here. Rook on d2 just wins the game. And you're gonna get checkmated in the next move this way or another. You can try queen on f1, but still you're gonna get to the lost endgame, and of course with 2 extra pawns black gonna win. So this is why after rook on g2 Janowski resigned, as he didn't see any more tricks. So really nice game by Rubinstein, and I want to show you one more game from Ostende tournament, and this game was actually played between two the best players, maybe for